Hello again, and welcome to Broadcasting Scotland. It's Monday the 5th of December. I'm Andrew Wilson, and this is Scotland at 7. This evening, I have the latest daily update from Ukraine on day 285 of the illegal Russian war of aggression and imperial ambition. Then I will introduce our guest for this evening, and then together we will discuss today's headlines from Scotland and around the world. There have been explosions at two Russian air bases far from the front lines today, raising the possibility that Kyiv has found a way to target Russian long-range bombers used in the attacks against Ukraine's infrastructure. 3 people have reportedly been killed and 6 injured. The Kremlin has warned the new Western price cap on Russian oil will destabilize global energy markets, but claimed it would not impact its invasion of Ukraine. Olaf Scholz has warned the West to avoid creating a new Cold War by dividing the world into blocs. Writing in an opinion piece for Foreign Affairs magazine, published today, the German Chancellor called for every effort to be made to build new partnerships. He singled out China and Russia as 2 countries that pose a threat to a multipolar world. The Chinese Foreign Ministry has said it will continue energy cooperation with Russia after the G7, EU and Australia imposed a price cap on Russian oil exports. In recent months, the number of sudden troop deployments conducted by Russian tactical combat aircraft over Ukraine has reduced significantly, according to the UK Ministry of Defence. Russian aircraft now probably conduct tens of missions per day, compared with a high of up to 300 a day earlier in March 2022. The US expects a reduced tempo in fighting to continue over the winter months, adding that there could be brighter prospects for Ukrainian forces in the coming months. Heavy fighting continues around the key Donbas town of Bakhmut, where Russian forces have been struggling for 6 months to make minimal progress. Reports on social media suggest that Ukrainian forces were making progress in operations on the east bank of the Dnipro River, opposite the recently liberated city of Kherson, after a reported amphibious landing on the Kinburn Spit last month. A draft resolution is circulating at the United Nations for a Nuremberg-style tribunal to hold Russia accountable for crimes of aggression in Ukraine. Signs also indicate that US opposition to the proposal may be softening in the face of lobbying by the Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelensky. And Iran's leadership has locked itself into a vicious cycle over protests and arming Russia, the US Special Envoy has said. The more Iran represses, the more there will be sanctions. The more there are sanctions, the more Iran feels isolated. Rob Malley, the US Special Envoy in Iran, told a conference in Rome. Now, we are lucky enough to be joined this evening by Chrs McCusker. Chris is a carer, an activist, a trades unionist, and a human rights campaigner. Chris, good evening. How are you keeping?
Yeah, I'm absolutely grand. It's been a while since I've been on with you.
It has been a wee while, Chris, but it's great to see you again on Broadcasting Scotland this evening. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Andrew.
Our first story this evening is that Labour has unveiled its blueprint for an overhaul of the UK Constitution, based on tackling regional inequalities and moving political power away from London, and described by Keir Starmer as an end to short-term sticking plaster politics. At the centre of the plans, set out in a 155-page document, is an overarching commitment to decentralisation, including a new constitutional commitment for Westminster to respect the autonomy of local and regional government. The report, put together by a commission headed by the former Labour Prime Minister Gordon Brown, lists a total of 40 recommendations, ranging from abolishing the House of Lords to creating new revenue-raising powers for local areas. Launching the plan in Leeds alongside Brown and Tracy Brabin, the Labour Mayor of West Yorkshire, Starmer said that too many places were being held back by a system that hoards power in Westminster. Mr Starmer said that while he had not backed Brexit and did not support Scottish independence, he could sympathise with the underlying idea of people wanting more control over their lives, more control over their country, and feeling dissatisfied with remote Westminster politics. Responding to Labour's constitutional proposals, the SNP Deputy Leader Keith Brown said, "After bigging it up for months and months, Gordon Brown has already undermined this report by saying that Labour will ignore what the people of Scotland vote for if they reject Labour and impose theirs anyway. That is contemptuous. They are acting just like the Tories." It also shows that they have disrespected their own promise in 2014 that power lay with the Scottish people to decide how Scotland is governed, and it utterly humiliates Anas Sarwar by driving a coach and horses through his principles for reform. Ironically, a report which claims to be about strengthening devolution in many cases actually looks set to undermine it. It's just another Groundhog Day. The fact is, he continued, Labour are now a pro-Brexit party with a pro-Brexit leader. They are completely at one with the Tories when it comes to ignoring Scotland's vote to remain in the EU and ignoring the democratic will of the people of Scotland to determine their own future, and nothing in these proposals changes that. So, Chris, first of all, with regard to the suggestion from Mr. Starmer and Mr. Brown that they will reform the House of Lords, the House of Lords currently has something like 800 odd members with an average age of 71. It's absurd, isn't it?
The House of Lords is absurd. Of course it is. But again, any suggestion of reforming the upper chamber is completely ludicrous, and it's quite frankly one for the birds. Labour desperately want to be part of the establishment, which is ironic because when I was in Labour, the idea of that we were actually fighting the establishment, look, Labour at the moment are I would say they're clutching at straws. Their polling has been up in Scotland, and they're now vying for second place. Edging out the Tories, such as their huge unpopularity in Scotland. And again, what it seems to me like they wheel out poor old Gordon Brown. They've fantastically done it in 2013. They're doing it again. This is what the Vow 5 or something like that. It sounds like a Terminator movie. But they're trying to make themselves relative to Scotland. They know how unpopular the House of Lords is. They know how unpopular Tory policy is. But they still can't shake off the millstone around their neck is the fact that they sold Scotland out, and they're struggling to appeal to the average Scottish voter.
Thanks, Chris. You summed the situation for Labour Party in Scotland up there very well. Our second story this evening also talks about the Labour Party, because rejoining the EU's single market would not boost UK economic growth, according to Keir Starmer, who has argued that it would create years of uncertainty for UK businesses, which would be worse than the closer trade links that would come. In another sign of Labour's extreme reluctance to be portrayed as seeking to dismantle or reverse Brexit, Starmer said that as Prime Minister, he would instead seek to improve Boris Johnson's deal. Asked why he believed this when so many UK firms have said they are suffering because of the significant extra difficulties of exporting to and importing from the EU, Starmer said that the single market was not the solution. The SNP has said that independence is the only way to regain Scotland's place in Europe and to get back on the path to prosperity. Previously, Starmer argued the opposite, telling Channel 4 News in 2018 that the benefits of the single market and the customs union are crucial. We must have something that retains the benefits of the single market and the customs union. The Office for Budget Responsibility has forecast that the UK faces a 4% hit to GDP compared to remaining in the EU, and polls show that the overwhelming majority of Scots want to rejoin the EU, with a panel-based poll in August showing that 69% of Scots want to rejoin the EU, up from 61% in January. Commenting, the SNP's trade spokesperson Drew Hendry MP said, "Brexit has been an unmitigated disaster for the UK economy and in turn for Scotland's economy. It has cost us billions of pounds, reduced trade, raised costs for families and businesses, and has caused long-term decline. With the Labour Party ruling out any return to the EU under Westminster control, he continued, independence is the only way to regain Scotland's place in Europe and get back on the path to prosperity. So, Chris, firstly, do you think is it impossible? Will Starmer just point blank refuse to recognise the economic and social damage which Brexit has done and will continue to do to families and businesses year after year from now on?
Yeah, I mean, again, Starmer's caught between the rock and a hard place because primarily he knows that Scotland, I think, is irreparable for Scottish Labour. And what he has to do is he has to appeal to the red wall constituencies, you know, in order to bring some momentum, if I can use that kind of word, you know, associated with Labour. He has to bring some sort of momentum into the party, you know, and appeal to the sort of like the middle of the road voters that were duped by Brexit. You know, and I mean, Drew Henry's absolutely 100% right. You know, I mean, you and I have talked at length ad nauseum about trade between the likes of Aberdeen and Peterhead and stuff like that. You know, vis-a-vis the fisheries. You know, I mean, crayfish going over to France and getting to the restaurants of Paris, and you know, I mean, we need that trade, and it was just in time delivery. Now it's not just in time. Now it's 5 days, 6 days sometimes. You know, in order to get what was caught on Tuesday, you know, to the market. You know, Paris for about Saturday morning. And you know, so it's not fresh. It's not top quality, and the French won't pay you know, top dollar for things that are not top quality. So you know, Starmer again, as you quite rightly pointed out, you know, he was once a keen advocate of the single market and the customs union, and you know, now he's completely went 365 degrees, which again countermands as well what Anna Sauer has been saying in Holyrood as well, is the fact that you know that he sees export and import as being, you know, vital to the Scottish economy. So I think he's reading the room all wrong. But then at the end of the day, if you take the demographic of Scotland and then, you know, the demographic of England and Wales, you know, it's a must win for him that he has to get those red wall seats back in order to, you know, garner any support within Westminster.
Of course, Chris. Absolutely. Thank you. Now, we'll move on from Labour politics now, because following the announcement by the Skye Ross and Lochaber MP Ian Blackford that he would not be standing again to be the SNP's Westminster leader, the Glasgow Central MP Alison Thewlis and the Aberdeen South MP Stephen Flynn have both announced their intention to stand for election at tomorrow's SNP Westminster Group AGM. The post of Deputy Group Leader is also being contested after the East Renfrewshire MP Kirsten Oswald tweeted that she would not be seeking re-election. The Cumbernauld, Kilsyth and Kirkintilloch MP Stuart MacDonald and the Renfrewshire South MP Vary Black have both announced their candidacy for the Deputy Leader job at Westminster. The SNP Westminster Group AGM takes place at 6 p.m. tomorrow evening, with the results expected to be announced probably around 7:30. We will bring you the results if the results come in while we are on air with tomorrow evening's Scotland at 7. So, Chris, firstly, the prospects for a new leadership team for the SNP's Westminster Group, with both Ian Blackford and Kirsten Oswald standing down. In terms of a leadership team, who do you think would be the best to harness the party to work as effectively as possible and to harness the party to work successfully with the wider Yes movement? Would it be Alison Thewlis and Stuart MacDonald, or Stephen Flynn and Vary Black?
Well, knowing them all personally, maybe not so much Stephen Flynn. I've had a few conversations with him over the years. I know Alison very well, and obviously I know Mary even better. I've known Mary for quite a while. I've got a lot of regard for Mary, but look, the whole shake-up, I think, is needed. I mean, as good as Ian Blackford was at putting Scotland's point across and at least trying to hold the Tories to account, although he constantly gets shot down. Maybe that would change with a female leader. Maybe that might make for more for a better debate, should I say, within the chamber. But they're all able politicians. They're all vastly experienced. But we just need to see how it goes. I would hope that it would possibly shake up as to how things are done there. I mean, I would quite like to have, it's just my politics, but I would just, I would prefer to have Angus Brendan McNeill, as a firebrand to, shout back at the Tories. But I mean, as I said, they're all able-bodied MPs. They're all hugely experienced, and maybe Alison and Mary rather than Stephen and Mary. I don't know. I mean, mix it up a wee bit. But they'll probably go for a gender balance, so it'll be a female leader and a male deputy, or a deputy leader and a female deputy. Well, hopefully see. I'll be definitely tuning in to tomorrow night's programme, mate.
Thanks, Chris. Absolutely. And if the results do come in from the Westminster Group AGM tomorrow evening, whilst we are on air with Scotland at 7, we will bring you the results live. But let's move on now, because the Confederation of British Industry has warned that the UK risks facing a decade of lost economic growth on top of the recession it is now in, if the UK government action is not taken. Following the warning, the SNP has said that the two main Westminster parties, the Tory and the Labour parties, are now aligned on key issues such as Brexit and immigration, and so independence is the only way to protect Scotland's economy, businesses and people. Commenting, the SNP's economy spokesperson, Alison Thewlis MP, said, "Under the Tories at Westminster, Scotland has been plunged into a recession and now faces a decade of lost economic growth. One of the key factors to the UK's low growth and low productivity is the labour shortages following the Tories' hard Brexit. The SNP, along with the independent OBR and the CBI, have long recognised that immigration has a positive effect on the economy, but we have been repeatedly ignored." So, Chris, the Director General of the CBI, Mr. Danker, said, "Britain fails to invest as much as it should compared to our G7 competitors in capital, in people and ideas. And it was Rishi Sunak's view that the government needed to play a role in changing that." But he went on to say, "But the truth is, there is still no plan." So is the Director General of the CBI, Mr. Danker, is he right when he says there is still no plan, and there's been no plan for a very long time?
Well, I mean, clearly, Mr. Danker is correct. I mean, we were just discussing there Keir Starmer's, woeful attitude towards Scotland, and it sounds like through this, what was it, 155-page report that you cited, that he's not listening to Scotland's needs. Vis-a-vis the economy, vis-a-vis inward migration, vis-a-vis Scotland's need to be in charge of its own fiscal policies and fiscal arrangements, and I don't think that's going to change. You could possibly say, I think I'm right in saying that when the sort of like the ramifications were fully made known about Brexit, both bodies, the OBR and the CBI, at that time said that Britain was in charge of possibly in waiting of 10 years of recovery. Now you're looking at 10 years on top of what the Tories have already done to us this year. I would say it's more than that. I would say it's 15. For any kind of positive economic recovery, for the whole of the UK. So I mean, I think it's more vital than any time is the fact that we need to cut free from Westminster, PDC, PDQ, pretty damn quick. And it's, because it's not going to change. It's not going to change with a Labour administration. It's never going to change with a Tory administration. We're constantly going to be treated as second-class citizens, with regards, as I pointed out, export and import, inward migration for, to support the working demographic within Scotland. As it's been laid out, just take one sector for argument's sake. The Scottish Government want to radically reform the care sector into the NHS, and we don't have the staff for that. Under the current Westminster policy of inward migration. So I mean, I think that the powers that be need to start listening to the likes of the CBI and the OBR. I mean, an awful lot of people, who are just activists, like grassroots activists. As you know, I take a wee bit more interest in these kind of bodies, obviously, from a trade union point of view. But from your ordinary activists, they're not looking at reports such as these, which actually highlight, again, the need for Scotland to actually start from the ground up, and the only way that we can do that is, being full members of the European Union.
Absolutely, Chris. One other thing around this story, the CBI also said that the big policy lever that's missing is around green growth. There is a genuine and widespread concern that this government is going backwards on green growth. It is by far and away the largest economic growth prize for Britain competitively in the rest of the world. Now, two things, Chris. Is that also true? And is it fair to say that we are acutely aware of the Westminster government going backwards on green growth, not least as a result of their kicking the Acorn project in the northeast of Scotland away down the road?
Yeah, well, I mean, to my mind, and I might be wrong here, Andrew, but I look at Westminster and their dogged determination, bearing in mind the fact that we were told that the oil fields were dry in 2014. They are now granting more licenses because there is huge profit in fossil fuel, and there is more profit in fossil fuel for the Tories short term, so that they can get the money in now because they need it now, and they're not looking at the long term, of which the SNP and the Greens have been arguing for, which is a just transition, which is eradicating the use of fossil fuel and utilising those jobs as they are eradicated and moving them in to the green sector. And harnessing that experience, to take it over to this new sector, which, we could start vastly expanding. But again, we're not allowed to vastly expand our renewable sector because we are held back by Westminster. And the reason that we're held back from Westminster is because they want to put all their eggs into the fossil fuel basket, and none of them into the green basket. So, they're not believers in a green transition, or even a just transition. They are miles behind Scotland's thinking.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. Let's move on now, because the cost of items that make up a traditional Christmas dinner has risen 3 times faster than wages this year. That's according to research from the Trade Union Congress, the TUC. In a series of calculations to back its calls for more government actions on the cost of living crisis, the trade union body said that Christmas staples such as turkey, pigs in blankets, carrots and roast tatties had risen in price by an average of 18% in the space of a year, while wages have gone up by only 5.7%. The most recent official inflation data also indicates that some Christmas dinner components have gone up by a lot more than 18%. The food category that includes cranberry sauce and bread sauce has risen by 33% in a year, 6 times more than wages. On top of that, the cost of cooking this year's Christmas dinner will be much more expensive than last year because of soaring energy prices. Electricity and gas prices jumped by 66% and 129% respectively in the 12 months to October 2022. That's according to the latest Office for National Statistics data. The TUC said if wages had gone up as much as the cost of a turkey this Christmas, the average worker would have an extra £76 a week in their pay packet. The inflation data shows that the cost of poultry is up by almost 20% over the 12 months. According to a shopping basket put together by the investment platform Interactive Investor, a Christmas turkey dinner will cost 11.4% more than last year. Its shopping list, issued last week, mixed luxury items such as an organic turkey crown with products from supermarket basic ranges, and the bill for the 16 items to make a meal for a family of 4 came to £89.11, just over £9 higher than in 2021. The situation was even worse for vegetarians, whose Christmas dinner bill was calculated to have gone up by 19%, because the cost of a nut roast has jumped by 27%. The TUC is calling for ministers to give fully funded, cost-of-living-proof pay rises to public sector workers, and to raise the minimum wage to £15 an hour as soon as possible. So, Chris, firstly, do you think that this news regarding the leap in the price of a Christmas meal, do you think this news troubles the Sunak or perhaps the Hunt households as they prepare for Christmas?
No, absolutely not at all. And some would say that I'm my own worst enemy when it comes to using social media and Twitter and the likes. But I pointed out to Annie Wells when she put a tweet out about having the lights on their Christmas tree. I mean, there are some people that just won't be plugging their Christmas lights in this year. I mean, such as the rise in energy. I mean, it's a luxury that some people just will not be able to afford. And the average, speaking as a chef, the average length of cooking time for half a crown to a full bird is anything between 5 and 8 hours. And having the oven on for that time is just completely unsustainable. Nobody has got. I mean, they're talking about energy saving kettles now, and people are rather than putting the oven on to make a toasty, or should I say the grill, people are out buying the old fashioned Brevils and stuff like that now, because they're cheaper and quicker to use. Some people are using the slow cooker. Some slow cookers, you can't get a full turkey in them. Do you know what I mean? And they'll come out wet and greasy, and there'll be no crust on the bird. But so I mean, all these factors have got to take it in, and again, you have to, again cite the fact that I think it was something in the region of 30% that you were talking about condiments, going up in price. I was in Asda the other day there, and there's, usually 4 or 5 varieties of cranberry sauce. But the most, the usual one that everybody will go to is the Ocean Spray cranberry sauce. As they were selling that at £2.20 a jar, I can't see that. Their own brand was 99 pence. And I can remember, looking at that stuff, and it was 40, 45 pence, 50 pence. And as you say, it's getting to the stage where it's highly unsustainable, and there's a lot of people who are going to choose, obviously, the possibility of an alternative Christmas dinner. Many people will turn away from your average turkey and stuff like that, and go for things that are substantially cheaper.
Thanks, Chris. Let's move on. I've not had my dinner this evening, so any more talking about Christmas meals is going to be a rumble. So we'll move on if we may. Our next item is that Suella Braverman and Number 10 are considering options such as locking up people who enter the UK without valid entry documents and barring them from ever being able to settle in the UK, as the government puts a crackdown on small boats at the heart of its policy agenda. These ideas are contained in a report by the right-wing think tank, the Centre for Policy Studies, for which Braverman wrote the foreword. While the Home Secretary said she did not agree with everything in the report, the Home Office did not deny that some of the ideas were being examined as potential policy. Asked about the idea of detaining asylum seekers and barring them from settlement, a government source said, "The Prime Minister and the Home Secretary are absolutely focused on cracking down on illegal migration first and foremost, and are working through options together in order to ensure we have control of our borders." The Centre for Policy Studies report was co-authored by Nick Timothy, a former Home Office advisor and Downing Street Chief of Staff. It calls for a set of new policies to stop channel crossings. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees questioned the report's description of illegal for people seeking asylum, a term also used by Suella Braverman and the Home Office in official documents. There is no such thing as an illegal asylum seeker. The indefinite detention of those seeking asylum based solely on their mode of arrival would punish people in need of help and protection and would constitute a clear breach of the United Kingdom's obligations under the 1951 Refugee Convention, a statement from the UNHCR said. A blanket ban on claiming asylum in the UK for those arriving on small boats would also breach the Refugee Convention if this results in refugees having no means to establish their status and places them at risk of enforced return to their own countries. Access to asylum should never be contingent on the mode of arrival or nationality. The only way to establish whether people are refugees is through a fair and efficient determination of their claims. So, Chris, the UNHCR were very clear there. There is no such thing as an illegal asylum seeker, and the indefinite detention of those seeking asylum based solely on their mode of arrival or their nationality will punish people who are seeking help and protection. So this sounds very much like the same old coruscating hostile environment and misrepresentation both of the law and the misrepresentation of those who are only here seeking our protection.
Yeah, it depresses me. I've taken my chef's hat off now, and now I've put on my humanitarian aid hat. This depresses me. The mere mention of Suella Braverman's name just depresses me. I mean, honestly, I thought I'd seen a lot with Pretty Patel, but this woman is just off a scale. Again, we have to point out exactly what the UNCR have said, is that no refugee is illegal, no migrant is illegal, no asylum seeker is illegal. All human beings are, not illegal. And it must be down to their individual circumstance. And the point of the fact that the UK government have failed to do time and time again, is develop a system in place which has, equality and humanity at its core, to treat people on an individual basis, and ascertain exactly why they are leaving their country. Not why they're wanting to come to the UK, but why they are leaving their country. And if their country is getting the Donald Duck bombed out of it, then that is a reason for leaving that country, because the country is in turmoil, because it's in civil unrest, because they are in fear of their life, because of their sexuality is being challenged, their religion is being challenged, and all the rest of it. There are many factors why people leave someone's, origins of birth, where they live. But what this is, from Braverman's point of view at this moment in time, it's a continuation of the direction of travel of where Priti Patel was. And and they see it as a key factor of Brexit, not about what we were talking about earlier on with regards of trade and all the rest of it and whatnot and what have you. Devolution of more powers, and and uncentralising the whole of Westminster and all the rest of it. The core principle of Brexit was immigration, and it was basically them setting up saying, this guy here is going to steal your biscuits if we let him in. Do you know what I mean? That was it. That was it in a nutshell. But there was no in between to say, well, look, why don't you put the biscuits in the middle and share it? You know what I mean? They're not doing that. They're not thinking outside the box. And as I say, for the last 15, 20 years that we've had, in inverted commas, I hate punctuating in mid-air, but the problems that we've had regarding immigration have been exacerbated by the UK's should I say, reluctance to actually develop a proper immigration programme. We have got asylum seekers and refugees in Scotland at this moment in time who want to work, who are getting, some are getting £8 a week in order to live on. All they want to do is work. They want to work so that they can, have enough money to, make a new home for themselves, make a new country for themselves, and give into society, integrate into the community, and and pay something back, which will all be paid back through taxes. But again, the Westminster government do not see that. Do you know what I mean? And it's getting very, very scary. Rhetoric coming out of Keir Starmer, where he's basically saying white jobs for white people and all the rest of it. It's a dangerous, slippy road that's going down. And there is no discrimination between Labour's immigration policy and the Tories' immigration policy, because the central fact of it is Brexit, and that is the be-all and end-all of it.
Absolutely, Chris. Thanks very much for summing that up for us so well. Let's move on now for our next item, because the Sinn Féin leader, Mary Lou MacDonald, has said that everything will be up for discussion in order to reach agreement on a potential united Ireland, including potential concessions to unionists over the Irish flag and the national anthem. Ms MacDonald was speaking to journalists in Limerick today before addressing the annual general meeting of the Irish Creamery and Milk Suppliers Association. Ms MacDonald was asked for her reaction to new research which showed that many voters in the Republic were unwilling to make concessions to unionists to accommodate them in a united Ireland. Almost half of all voters said changes to the anthem and the flag would make them less likely to vote for a united Ireland in a referendum in the Republic, according to an Ipsos opinion poll published today. Ms MacDonald said the data also shows that the issue of health and economic well-being far outplays any of the legitimate issues around flags or anthems, and I think we need to be careful here not always to reach for the old reliables of flags and anthems. However, when pressed further in the context of the tricolour and the national anthem, she said that while her preference was for the status quo to remain, every single thing will be discussed. Ms MacDonald said that of course there was a need to talk about flags and anthems, but people are very sensible and they know in their day-to-day lives that healthcare and health provision, economic well-being and economic opportunities matter. That's really where it's at, she said, adding, above all else, I think it is now perfectly clear that we need to start the planning for a united Ireland, start the conversation, and to engage people. She said concentrating the conversation on the flag and the anthem was the wrong way to come to the future, because it highlights that someone wins, someone loses, someone advances, someone concedes. Ms MacDonald said, I don't think that's how the conversation is going to happen at all, because I think it's in everybody's interests that we have a properly resourced, accessible health service. So, Chris, Mary Lou MacDonald said, of course, we need to talk about flags and anthems, but people are being sensible and they know in their day-to-day lives that healthcare and health provision, economic well-being and economic opportunities, that's really where it's at. So, Chris, she's right, isn't she? Not least because people are very anxious after the pandemic to make sure that their healthcare provision returns to where it was before or even is improved after that. So people are putting that ahead of flags and anthems, are they not?
Yeah, definitely. And it is, I mean, flags and anthems are the staple diet of the unionists, and it's there's a wonderful thing. If people go to my Twitter, they'll see that I put up a video, and it was done in Channel 4 by an Irish comedian whose name escapes me now. But it was all about what thing with flags and stuff like that, or as the Irish would say, flag. It's FLEG, and the argument around there was the fact that it's so contentious, the thought of losing the Union flag, for the British nationalists, is the fact that they feel that the removal of the Union Jack is actually a removal of their own identity, which I find a bit bizarre. Look, I've always maintained that when Scotland gets its independence, we don't sit in our laurels. We don't forget about our nationality and stuff like that. And neither will unionists. They've got every right to argue for to make their. I have advocated since 2013 that we should let the unionists make their claim. Make it known what the union will benefit us, not us saying, Scotland will do this and Scotland will do that, and Scotland will do the next thing, but what actually the union delivers for us, and they need to make that case, and they'll be able, within the attrition of human rights and all the rest of it. In an independent Scotland, they'll have every right to, argue for, going back to the union. It's up to them to make the case for the union, and the unionists in Northern Ireland just can't see the fact that the union, in its context, is defunct. It's simply not working. It's something of 100 years ago, a century ago. The union was a conscript of four nations pulling together, and hopefully going in the same direction. But unfortunately, that direction is, they may be going towards that same direction, but uh, Ireland wants to go a different direction. They've seen the positive case in Southern Ireland, that a small poor country has actually had its fortunes turned round by being a member of the European Union, and that that has to play out to the rest of Ireland. If you look at the polling in Ireland, you know the Sinn Féin, the Unity for Ireland, the SDLP, the alliance parties and all the rest of it. They hold the lion's share on that, and the Unionists are in the majority within 6 provinces that are cobbled together. And so, I mean, they will put the narrative around, British identity and and British patronage and stuff like that, and God Save the King and all that, mince. But that's what the establishment use to tug at the heartstrings of people's kind of like identity and sense of uh, you know I don't know, land of hope and glory and all that charades, and which I mean, there's like something out a Carry On film. Do you know what I mean? So I think
Oh,
Mary Lou McDonald, as again, similar to Nicola Sturgeon, she's a progressive, forward-thinking politician. But again, make no mistake, Ireland, very much like Scotland, they are still up against the Union, and it is the establishment is at the heart of the Union. That's who you're actually up against. You're not up against British nationalists and stuff like that and all the rest of it. You're up
of
against the
course.
might of the Union, which
Thank,
encompasses, as you well know, broadcasting and tabloids and all the rest of it. So it goes far and beyond flags and
thanks, Chris.
anthems.
Thanks, Chris. Now then, our next story is that the Democrats secured control of the US Senate in last month's midterm elections, keeping their fragile hold on power with 50 seats and Vice President Kamala Harris as the tie-breaking vote. Winning the Georgia runoff election on Tuesday would deliver Democrats more than just a single seat. It would finally give them an outright Senate majority. The contest between Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock and his scandal-plagued and Trump-backed Republican challenger Herschel Walker will determine whether the Democrats retain their 50-50 majority in the Senate, the narrowest possible balance of power, or whether they will expand it. Gaining one more seat in the Senate would have far-reaching implications for the Democrats, both politically and procedurally. With a 51st seat, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer could assume greater control over the upper chamber, making governing easier and more expedient than it is currently in the evenly split Senate. In early 2021, victories by Warnock and John Ossoff in the state's twin runoffs delivered Democrats control of a 50-50 Senate, with Vice President Harris having the tie-breaking vote. Chuck Schumer then spent weeks negotiating a power-sharing agreement with the Republican leader Mitch McConnell, which delayed the confirmations of the newly inaugurated Joe Biden's nominees. The even divide extended to the committees, where members frequently deadlocked over nominees or legislation, requiring additional manoeuvring to advance them to the floor. Should Raphael Warnock win, Democrats will hold majorities on the committees and can use that power to move nominations and other legislative business on a party line vote. So, Chris, do you think what we're seeing here with I should also say that the Democratic candidate, Raphael Warnock, was slightly ahead in the polling when I checked just before we came on air. So do you think that there is now a possibility here that the Senate can be better run by the Democrats, and actually the Democratic Party in the Senate can be better run if they are able to secure a 51st seat in that House?
Yeah, it's a weird one. I mean, the likes of you and I take a keener interest in what happens stateside. As maybe the average viewer. I don't know. I might be wrong. I'm happy to get shot down. But it's a whole different system in the American Senate and the upper chamber as well. A lot of things are happening in the background. Vis-a-vis, the whole Trump thing is still rolling on, and will he actually put his hat back in to the running and stuff like that. An awful lot of people are saying that if he does, he opens himself to, further counterclaims and stuff like that for, his previous transgressions. But the actual control, the actual idea of having sort of like one as basically brokermanship as it's a curious one. I know sometimes a difficult one for people to get their head around.
Of course.
If it comes around and it benefits the country, then obviously it's a good thing. But if it comes around and it doesn't benefit the country, then obviously it's a question for the ages.
Thanks, Chris. We'll no doubt find out as this evening goes on as to how the polling in Georgia goes. But we'll squeeze in our final story this evening because while COP27 focused on the climate crisis and reducing emissions, the United Nations Biodiversity Conference, known as COP15, which begins in Montreal this week, will focus on tackling the worldwide decline in biodiversity. Ahead of the conference, the Biodiversity Minister, Lorna Slater, comments on her aspirations for COP15 and why it could be the world's last chance to restore and protect nature. Ms. Slater said Scotland was one of the first countries to declare a global climate emergency, but with a 24% decline in nature over the last 30 years, it is clear that we also face a nature emergency here in Scotland and across the world. Tackling the nature emergency means protecting what we have left while doing more for nature. Together we must act at every level to restore vital biodiversity everywhere, from our gardens to our farms, our hillsides to our rivers and seas. In recent years, the Scottish Government has begun to scale up investment and action to restore nature. We have, for example, created the £65 million Nature Restoration Fund, supported the reintroduction of beavers, and committed to establishing a new national park. But we know that we need to do more, and will soon publish a new strategy for Scotland that will set out our plans to stop the decline in biodiversity by 2030 and to restore it by 2045. She continued, investing in landscape scale change will be crucial to our success. That's why we've committed to protecting 30% of our land and seas for nature by 2030. The 30 by 30 target that I hope will be agreed by all countries at COP15. She finalised by saying, this is critical to both our nature and the climate aspirations. Nature-based solutions like peatland restoration and woodland creation make up 40% of Scotland's net zero journey. Now, Chris, we're really tight on time this evening, I'm afraid to say, so I'll not come to you for your thoughts on COP15, but as the conference runs for more than a week, I'm sure that we'll be discussing it more on Broadcasting Scotland as we hear more from Montreal. So my apologies for cutting you off in your prime, as it were. We will come back to you on this, I'm sure, in the future. But in the meantime, I'm sorry to say, that is all that we have time for this evening. In making these programmes, Broadcasting Scotland relies on the support of viewers and others who value our distinctive approach to news, current affairs and culture. Please help us to continue to make these programmes, to continue to develop the station and to make new programmes for you. Our programmes will always be free to view, but if you can afford £5 per month, please consider becoming a Broadcasting Scotland supporter. We have set ourselves a target of adding 10,000 new supporters to enable us to employ staff to make more programmes. To everyone who has donated, and to everyone who has signed up to make a regular monthly payment as a Broadcasting Scotland supporter, thank you very much. There are other ways in which you can contribute to our work. If you would like to volunteer to work with Broadcasting Scotland, either behind the scenes or in front of the cameras, or in any other way that helps our work and promotes the station, then please visit our website at www.broadcastingscotland.scot and send us a message there. You can find us on Twitter at BroadcastScot. Please like and retweet us there. And you can also find us on Facebook by searching for Broadcasting Scotland. Well, when you're watching us on YouTube, it would be great if you would like and subscribe to Broadcasting Scotland on that platform. Click on the little bell. We will be back tomorrow evening at 7 with the next edition of Scotland at 7, so please come back and join us then. I'd like to thank everyone who's been watching, and of course, I'd like to say a very special thanks to our very special guest, Chris McCusker. Thanks, Chris.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure once again, Andrew. It's always a pleasure to discuss politics with you.
Well, thank you for joining us this evening, Chris, on Scotland at 7. 28 years ago today, the Budapest Memorandum was signed. Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons, and in return, Russia, Great Britain, and the US guaranteed Ukraine's security and territorial integrity. It's worth remembering. I hope that you have a very peaceful evening. Bye bye.